Well, this has been a long time coming. Hello there, and welcome to the tour of the Commando class Orbital Assault Ship, the 13th vehicle in my military utility logistics or transport vehicles series of military vehicles. My name is Wimperman, and I am the chief designer, chief builder, chief architect, and chief dumbass behind the Commando class project. Now, come out of that view, turn the HUD on. There's a few things that I would like to say before we start the tour proper. The first is that when I get to the interior layout and any remaining devices segment, I'm not actually going to do a full interior tour. I'm going to do a full interior tour at the end in the relatively new other info segment that I've started to do at the end. That means that when you get to that point, the video shouldn't be so long, so if you want to skip it and leave, you can. The second thing, that doesn't mean I'm not going to show you the interior layout. It's just going to be a basic, it's going to be the layout rather than a full tour. Now, I do want to say I am not Jeff Randall, okay? My brain isn't wired in the way required to do all the block shape detailing that Jeff Randall can do. Now, I seem to be more of an engineer than an artist, so my ships are laid out more logically. I find other people's ships hard to navigate because their ships are built in such a way that the interior isn't, very logical, to use the same word again. So, yeah, it's going to be very difficult to get lost in this ship, and I will explain that a bit more, in fact, when I get to the interior layout bit. But because I know that I can't do the block shaping that other people can, I do other stuff instead. I do labels and signs like this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and these, and this, and this, and these, and this, and even shit like this. However, I'm also not solistical, so, whatever. Another thing I want to mention is that I had to downgrade. So in my terms, definitions and conventions guide, if you scroll down or find the image at the top for what the military classifications are and what they're made out of. That's construction rules. I had to change this. Originally, a military ship, so this is a non-rated warship, an unrated, sorry. Now, it was supposed to have a structural frame of xenosteel and then a skin of combat steel. That was originally planned. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the textures to work because they were visible and it was a pain in the ass, so I eventually downgraded it, so now it's a structural frame of combat steel with a skin of hardened steel. I didn't want to, but I had to. On top of that, speaking of textures, there are no grow plots on board. Now, when we get to the CPU and upgrading segment, I will show you where you can put some, but there are none on board, again, because the textures, it textures the whole grow plot block, which unfortunately was ruining the ceiling. So in sick bay, the ceiling would have been the grow plots for the galley and mess that's on the deck above, and it just was shit. So I tried both. I in fact, the xenosteel structural frame, I actually got quite a long way through the building process before I gave up and downgraded it all. That was fun. Right, I also want to say, I apologise, so the way I build my ships, they make more sense. I need to slow down speaking, otherwise I feel I'm tumbling. It's tripping over my tongue. See, I even tripped over the words tripping over my tongue because I was trying to do it fast. Anyway, right. So my ships make more sense in universe, so it's more realistic. It makes less sense as a ship that players play on in a game. Now, that does mean that some of it makes slightly less sense. So you'll see, in fact, if you've read the description, you'll know that this its standard crew is, what was it? 353, I think it was, and then a maximum of crew based on the quarters that are on board of 433 personnel. Obviously, that makes absolutely no sense in the game. I mean, even if you're on a multiplayer, you're not going to have anywhere near that. I mean, you probably won't even have 10% that on board. Maybe 1%. So, yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense in a game. However, there's a mobile RPG game that's currently being advertised on YouTube, like almost every video, and it's the one that starts, "This is the aircraft carrier shelter that you have captured," and that is how I see my ships. So this is a naval ship that in the survival situation presented in the game would be co-opted into a different role. It's like you would take an actual naval carrier and then put grow plots on it, which is one of the reasons I don't mind grow plots not being on it. Right, the last thing I want to say before I start the tour proper is that it isn't designed to land. It has no landing gear on it. It also has no max lift function, so I'll cover this more when I get to the propulsion segment. But it can't really operate in. I mean, it can probably do up to 3G. It could do 4G, but I wouldn't recommend it. and even if it could, it can't land. Now, this means that this ship is well suited for a very niche group of people. People who enjoy playing with others, so a small group of friends who enjoy personalising vessels, so you can have fun ripping bits of this out. So like I said, there are crew quarters on board that you just won't need, so you can rip out loads of them and fill the space with other stuff. But also because it can't land, it would also be good for people who don't really like HVs. I know that a lot of people, when they start early game, they'll build an SV rather than a HV to get around. Also, a lot of people don't like mining with HVs, so that would be perfect. So this would be perfect for them. Righto, now that that's all out the way, I'm going to start the tour, beginning with its role and its task equipment. Okay, so it is an orbital assault ship, so think the Sulaco from Aliens, except, as I've already alluded to, with a number of crew that actually makes sense. Because obviously when the Sulaco takes damage, who's meant to repair it? Is it the Marines? Because we don't see any personnel aboard other than the Marines. Buh. So its task then is to base and deploy a platoon of Marines onto a planet, probably, or other ships or space stations, I suppose. And in order to facilitate that task, well, as usual, you could probably count the thrusters, because without those it wouldn't be able to take the Marines anywhere. But generally speaking, the roleplay crew quarters and the rather large hangar bays are the equipment, or is the equipment that it uses to fulfill that task. It's quite difficult really to put into words how this bases and deploys Marines, but there you go. You will also notice in the screenshots that I have put in the ships that it's supposed to carry. Give me a second, I'm going to get some out, because it's part of this, I suppose. Okay, here we go. So, the Commando class is designed to carry 6 of these Lynx APCs, each of which can carry a full section of 8 Marines or mobile infantry or what have you. There's also an extra seat for an officer or a commander or a Ripley or something. Now these would be carried to a planet in a Quetzalcoatlus mechanized dropship, and the Commando class is, the bottom bay is big enough to carry 3 of these Quetzalcoatluses. On top of that, it also carries, or is also supposed to carry, 6 giant Marabou troop drop ships. Oh my god. Also, that can carry a full section of 8 men plus 2 extra seats for, again, Ripley or Newt or officers or what have you, specialists, advisors, whatnot. And these would live in the top bay along with 8 of these, the Argentavi, plural of Argentavis. And it would also carry 4 each of these modules that go in the middle. Is the idea of these. There's a personnel carrier module and a medical module and a cargo module. So the bays are big enough to carry those. Now the top bay, the main bay, the through deck hangar bay that goes from the stern to the bow, and other than the nacelles, the full beam of the ship. It is actually big enough to fit 4 of these side by side. The idea of that is that, so there are the places where they launch from, the doors in the top, have like a marked out area on the floor, on the deck. There you go, we can see it there. And a space for it to be moved to the side so that other ships can fly through the entire deck if they need to be moved out of the way. So although it's designed to carry 8 of these, it actually could carry 16, but then there wouldn't be any room to fly from bow to stern or vice versa. So there you go, that's what it's designed to do. This of course is all lore, it's all in universe. I'm not obviously saying that you have to carry 3 of those and 6 of those and 6 of those and 8 of those and you can't have any other ships on it. Of course you can. Right, I'm going to clear this away and then move on to the next segment, which will be its propulsion, handling and lift capacity. Now, before I show you the thrusters, just a quick thing. Recently the game was updated. There was a new model for the drone bay, and they also introduced the CV jet thrusters, and when they did that they balanced the not jet thrusters. They reduced them slightly in their thrust output. They also reduced the amount of power they need, and they reduced the CPU cost. Now the ship was, it wasn't, I hadn't started painting and I hadn't started doing the crew quarters, but other than that it was pretty much built, and that meant that it went from a almost max CPU ship to basically half. It halved the CPU cost. Now what that meant is that, and you will, when I get to the weapons, defences and construction segment, I will get out the unpainted version. Hang on a minute. No. No, I have got a separate one for this, haven't I? Hang on. Yes, the pre-update. Here we go. So that's basically what it was before I... Oh, you'll also notice another change as well, but I'll get to that in a minute. So you will see the nacelles don't have any thrusters in the front and backs of them, and the lateral thrust are all large, whereas on the released version there are thrusters front and back of these nacelle structures, and the laterals are extra large, which is very nice. And you may also notice there's a lot more weaponry as well. In fact, this will show... Yeah, there you go. 5 million CPU out of 10 million. Now it was something like 9 million and something like 800,000 at this point. And I was getting worried about the CPU, and then the update came out and fixed my issue for me. So that was very lovely. Now, this was fun, although I really should do this in the construction bit, but since it's out, I might as well show you. I lengthened the ship at this point by another 3 blocks. So if we go to the same point, so here's that point but further ahead, and you'll see it's 1 block in between these hangar doors, and then here it's 3 blocks, 4 actually, sorry. As you can see, I lengthened it because the Quetzalcoatluses in the Quetzalcoatlus Bay were very close to each other, and that extra 3 blocks gave me enough room. So there you go. Right. So, propulsion then. For forwards, it has 4 extra large and 4 large thrusters. Braking and reverse, it has 16 large, you'll see 8 there, 2 on the front of each nacelle as well, making a total of 16. Laterally, as you've already seen, 4 extra large, which makes the yaw much better than it was. And then downward and upwards are 16 large thrusters each as well. 4 in each nacelle, 4 nacelles, 16 total. You may have noticed there are some on the back that aren't turned on. Those 2 on the backs of the front nacelles and these here. Now those are the ahead full thrusters for when you want an extra bit of acceleration. Right, handling. God, it's been so long since I've done a tour. I'm struggling to remember where to go and what to say and what to do and stuff. So, with a head full off, it will accelerate forwards at 71 meters per second squared, brake and reverse at 53. It'll then do up and down at the same number of the same thrusters. I'm missing one. Lateral. Where's the lateral? There. 58. 58 meters per second laterally. Agility. It will yaw at 19 degrees per second, pitch at 17, and roll at 49. Now that does change slightly with a head full on. So I think yaw goes from 19 to 20, but that's it. The biggest change, obviously, is the forward acceleration from 71 to 91. Not too bad for just large threat. Well, they are large after all. So, lift capacity then. Now, again, it doesn't have a max lift function, so I won't be telling you max lift on and max lift off. So, in 1G, she can lift 342.5-ish kilotons. In 2Gs, it's 171.25 kilotons, and in 4Gs, it's 85.6 kilotons. Now, the ship herself weighs 63.6 kilotons. So in 4G, it will only lift a further 22 kilotons. Now, I put them away already. I don't think all the vehicles you would carry would come to that. I highly doubt it. But cargo might. So I wouldn't recommend flying this in a 4G environment. I would suggest 3G only, and then be careful over that. Handling. No, we did handling. Now I'm going to do a test flight. So with pilot mode on, this is how she handles. Obviously her roll is going to be better than everything else. Considering how massive she is, I don't think this is bad at all. It's not even a it's okay for its size kind of thing, in my opinion. This is actually alright. There we go. Right, so that's the end of that segment. The next segment then is her power, fuel and air. Now, as always with my tours, I'm going to tell you about this stuff and show you where they are later in the interior layout bit. So, her main power is provided by 8 large Tier 1 generators. She also has 4 large Tier 1s for emergency power. Her fuel, she has a lot of fuel. 41 large tanks, 15 medium tanks and 5 small tanks, plus a pentaxid tank. O2, she has 84 large tanks and 2 small tanks. So she is fully compartmentalized, and you might notice she is quite power hungry even when just sat there doing nothing. And I do apologise for that, but I did it for, again, the realism. But she has 270 air vents. So, yeah, she's basically fully compartmentalised. Now, the through-deck hangar bay is basically one compartment. So if you take 1 block damage here, the entire through-deck hangar bay is depressurised. There we go. Thank you, brain. It only took you a few seconds. However, if you take damage, say, here, where there are some crew quarters, basically it would only depressurize 1 cabin rather than the whole deck. That's why that's been done. Now, again, when I get to the upgrading bit, I will probably recommend ripping some of them out. I know that kind of forces you to do work. I forgot to explain. No, I will talk about it in the upgrading bit. Right, that's the end of that segment. The next segment then is its weapons, defences and construction. Right then, weapons. So it has 4 pulse laser turrets, which I have set to what I consider to be my secondary warship turret configuration, which is the generators of bases and CVs, so that when it will keep the shields down even when they're down, is the idea, because it might take a while to get through to those components and therefore will keep the shields down longer. It has 16 flak turrets, which I consider to be my tertiary warship turret, which are configured to the turrets of bases and CVs. It has 32 Gatling turrets, quite a lot of them, so this is really good for anti-fighter defense. They're set to my point defense configuration. They will target drones. It will obviously target soldiers, but you know, if you're flying around above a planet, then you know you'll waste a bunch of ammo, I suppose. So drones, soldiers, and the weapons of small vessels. And finally, there are 10 sentry turrets on the inside, which are set to the intruder defense, so they'll target NPCs and players, and obviously therefore drones. Defenses, it does have a shield. It's a tier 2 shield because it's a military vessel. However, because it's not a rated warship, it hasn't got a, what are they called, an extender, a shield extender. It does have a bit of armor. It's not massive, so I will show you in a minute what the skin is made of. So this is pretend armor because it's only protecting pretend pipes. This is coolant pipes, by the way. They bring coolant from the generators to the outside, where the space cools the coolant down, where it takes it back inside. But then beyond that, so this is hardened steel, and then this lag shot armor is hardened steel as well. Yep. And I'm pretty sure this is hardened steel too, which are around the generators. So there are some There is some armor. There's also some hardened steel here protecting the core. Now, as for its construction, as I have been doing, let's go to the other side where the star is. I've been saving I call it unpainted. Now I have changed the colors of the different materials so that they're easier to see. Combat steel, the combat steel structural frame is the darkest color. Then the dark grey is hardened, the lighter grey is steel, and then the rest, the even lighter grey is carbon composite. Yes. So here you go. You can have a quick look and see what it's kind of made of. As you can see, I have done a bit of weight saving where it doesn't really need to also be hardened steel. Some of the windows are what do they call them? They're heavy windows and armoured windows. It's that way round, isn't it? These are heavy and these are armoured. I would have liked to have done all heavy, to be honest, but obviously the shapes don't exist for the outer hull that I have done, but still. Now, on the inside, most of the deck plating is carbon composite. As you can see, the structural frame does go through the whole ship-ish. Now, between decks... Hang on, there we go. So between decks 5 and 6, I've downgraded the structural frame to just steel because it was sort of too much combat steel in such a small space. So I was worried about weight, obviously, and cost. And most of the bulkheads are carbon composite. There are some exceptions, so in engineering, protecting the generators, there is some more steel as the bulkheads and the deck plating. But there you go. You get a good look at what it's made of. How much should I show you? Because obviously I don't want to give too much away because of the interior layout and then the full tour. As you can see by the symbols that are still on the blocks, this is actually that that has then been repainted, and then I used the replace command to basically take out everything that was in here. That must be a cargo box. Yeah. Okay, well, there you go. I think you've got a good enough look. Now, the reason I do a structural frame, by the way, I mean, other than the fact that it's in Star Trek and I'm a Trekkie, Trekker, whatever, I don't matter which one. I used to do this in Space Engineers. I mean, I didn't play it for long, and I was only really building ships on my own again in creative, but when I would test them and smash them into each other and shoot them and stuff, the structural frame quite often was left after the other blocks were damaged, and it looks... I mean, I don't know how well that translates into Empyrion, because I've never really taken any Empyrion ships into battle since I've started doing this. I have tested this, and I did test it after the update with the increased armament, and it was kind of underwhelming, to be honest. I managed to pick off all the weapons on the enemy ship, but when I was targeting its thrusters to get it to stop, I must have been following it around for about 10 minutes, and yeah, they were useless. But still, there you go. Right, I think we've had a good enough look at that. So the next segment then is going to be its resource gathering, production and storage. So, resource gathering has none. Production, though, it has plenty. So on board are 5 advanced, 1 large and 13 small constructors. There is also 7 food processors. Storage, this is a relatively long list. So ammo, there is a single 320 KSU ammo container. There is also 2 controllers, so just 8k each. Those are in the resupplying space stations. In fact, no, it's not in there. It's over there. And it is just that block. To explain why there are two 8K ones. Roleplay again. Then for cargo, there are 4 320k SU cargo containers. There are 2 in the cargo hold. These big white tanks on the outside of the ship, you can see, is the, or it's supposed to be, the water stores. Now, originally, again, when this was at nearly maximum CPU, that water storage was just a controller, so just 8K. But when the CPU plummeted down to half, I decided that this might as well be a full 320 SU container. So it is. In fact, it's actually more than that. So I think, so you can see the extenders here on the other side of these fuel tanks. And I think 320 came to about here. And then I decided to just fill in the rest so that if you took damage on the side, you wouldn't lose stuff in there. I can't imagine why you would, because I don't think there's anything targetable over here, but there you go. Right, so that's the full 320k SU cargo containers. There is also a single 200k SU, 2 72k SUs, 3 48k SUs, 2 32k SUs, and 2 24k SUs. Now, most of those are around the constructors, so that they have their own sort of output box nearby, and I will cover those when I either do the interior layout or the full tour. There is also 24 fridges and 16 armor lockers and a whole ton of other storage. So if we count things like closets that can store stuff, I mean, this crew cabin has 2 closets, and there are, hang on, oh, do you know what? I might as well let you have a look at this. If you're interested, this was me figuring out the crew and how many quarters I needed. So, there are a total of 160 cabins on board the Commando class. And when you consider that each one of them, I'm going to go back to the game, pause this if you want to look more. And each one of them has at least 1 closet. So there, and that's just closets. There are other things on board as well. Yeah, so there's a lot of storage on board. Right, so that's the end of that segment. So the next segment is going to be its interior layout and any remaining devices. So as usual, before I go inside, I'll talk about the any remaining devices that happen to be on the outside. And I'm going to start with the name and registry displays. Now, with all of these, it's always obvious which LCD projector is projecting the display, because obviously it's going to be close by. Yeah, there's that one. So, in case you care, the full registry, so this is the full registry, and then on the nameplates, actually I'll go to a different one this time, because we already looked at the top front, and we've seen the back one on the armor as well. So this is the main registry, and then like I said, the other one is the full registry. In case you care, let's go back to it. Wimpo Manufacturing, Unrated Warship, Orbital Assault, Military Utility, Logistics Transport Vehicles, number 13, and then this would be the number of the ship of that class. So mine would be the first, that would be 01. If you are, for example, the 4th person to subscribe to it on the workshop, then yours would be 005. Again, as I always say in these tours, that really doesn't matter. If you like the kind of Star Trek NCC 1701 registry thing, then you can of course do it. If you don't give a shit, nobody gives a shit you don't. So you can of course leave those as the number symbols. You can replace it with a number that means something to you, your house number, your date of birth, whatever. obviously no one's going to know or care even if they did know. So that's those. Again, as usual, this ship comes fully flight regulation lighting compliant. You may have already noticed the running lights kind of strobing, flashing, no, pulsing. There we go, that's the word I always forget. Pulsing. The running lights pulse, so they're slow on and slow off. And there are some elsewhere on the ship that are an alternate pattern, so when these main ones go off, the alternate ones come on, and these let any observer know that the ship is powered. Now, I will show you how these work when I get to the signals and shortcut stuff, but we of course have the navigation lights, green on the starboard, red on the port, there, and then white on the stern, there and there. Oh, there you go, you got some entryway guides. Yeah, I suppose that's part of the any remaining devices as well. So as you're approaching some of the hangar doors, all of them in fact, there are some guides, entry guides, so that you can go to your third-person view and make sure your SV is inside of the guides and not outside of them. Right, so that was the nav lights, and then we have the formation lights, which are these, I call them illuminated orientation panels, but they are in fact the formation lights. So again, like the nav lights, red on the port, green on the starboard, and white on the stern. However, there is also yellow on the ventral. There isn't a colour on the dorsal, the top, but there's yellow on the bottom. And that brings us then to the anti-collision beacons. So there are, I can't see any now. I'm looking for a light that's yellow. They're not on. Oh, they're on the nacelles, aren't they? So there you go. So we have, so these flash. They're yellow on the bottom and red on the top. And you will see on real-world aircraft they have red ones. Now, NASA currently has yellow nav lights on the bottom of their spacecraft, and this game is set roughly 350 years in the future, and I figured by then that that steady-on yellow nav light on the bottom would have transitioned into the bottom anti-collision beacon. And finally is the flight strobes. Now they are also anti-collision lights, and those are the bright white flashing ones you see on the wingtips of planes. Well, my ships have them too. There's one there, one over there on the other nacelle, obviously matching on the other side, and some on the stern as well. Although I don't think the stern should have them, but on big ships like that, oh my god, on big ships like this, I think that works. Repair device is out here. I've made sure I've kept a nice big area for you to park SVs on for repairing, and any HV, if you can get it up here, drop it off with a Quetzalcoatlus dropship maybe. Now, as you can see, the control station is in through that window there. There are also some lights. Okay. It's been so long since I put those, and when we get to the interior tour, I will show you the dedication plaque on the bridge that shows when I started building this, and that will explain why I'm forgetting stuff, because these things I put down many months ago and I couldn't remember how they were controlled, but it looks like they're on the motion sensor in there that also controls the lights in that room. So there you go. Right, I will also cover these antenna a little bit, just to explain it. I mean, they sort of are other devices. So these mean things. So this one is a medium range, like a ship-to-shore communications antenna. That one is a transmit-receive antenna for the teleporter, which is in here. You can just make it out there. There are more teleporter antennas elsewhere, especially on the bottom of the ship. There's one pointing backwards. Now, much like the make-believe coolant pipes on the outside, there are some ships that don't have them, and the way I explain that in my head is that the devices they are connected to still work without them. It's just apparently in headcanon more efficient with them, is the idea. So we have radar dishes and other instruments for measuring pressure and temperature and whatnot. These, hang on. No, those are long-range communications, these ones. These are the medium-range communications. And stuff. The only other one to talk about is this one, which you have probably seen. There are a lot of them around. Now, I consider these to be the transmit-receive antenna for the Wi-Fi blocks, which is why everywhere you'll see them, generally speaking, there's a Wi-Fi block nearby. So they're there, and the Wi-Fi block is actually in there. So the idea is they're connected to it and they improve efficiency, is the kind of point. Anything else? Let me just have a quick check. Not really. I mean, I could point to these coloured blocks that you will also see at all of the hangar doors. And they sort of let you know on which side of the ship you will be docking with, is kind of the idea of those. So, the interior layout then. I'm going to start with the on-foot access in the command module, which is here. Now, as with all of my ships, or at least most of them, unless I can't get them on, there's a light green light at every on-foot access point. So if you're looking for a way in, look for those. If you're jetpacking around, there's also the resupply in space stations are also technically a way in on foot. So let's start here. Actually, yeah, okay. So we'll start here. So this is Deck 2, Section 2, and above it is Deck 2, Section 1. Now, you might wonder why I haven't just called these Decks 2 and 3, and it's simply because I didn't feel like this was big enough to be its own deck. I mean, it's literally 2 rooms. So I decided that actually it should be Deck 2, Section 2, even though it's underneath Deck 2, Section 1. But Deck 2, Section 2 is where you would prep for your jetpacking adventures. There's also a teleporter and some bits for making ammo and replacing armor and armor mods. Obviously, O2 stations are here. There's also more in the airlock itself. And then 4 doors, 1 on each side and 2 on the back. And the only reason there's 2 on the back is symmetry. Although, thinking about it now, I maybe could have done 2 windows and a door in the middle, but never mind. So that's Deck 2, Section 2. Deck 2, Section 1, the only real thing you need to worry about up here, other than the way down and the ways up, is the fact that the repair device control station is in here for that, as I showed you earlier. Deck 1 is the command deck. And again, there you can explore this. The 2 things up here you really need to be worried about in this area is the directories. There's a directory by deck over there and a directory sorted alphabetically there. So if you want to find something, have a look there and see if it's listed. I haven't listed everything on there on this one, just FYI, because it might not be important enough for you to go and find. Most of this is that stuff plus all the RP nonsense, excluding the toilets, by the way. Oh, in case anybody doesn't know, a head is a toilet on board a ship. It's a tradition from the old sailing vessels. So at the bow of the ship was a figurehead, a statue, you know, head, arms, chest. Now that usually had beams next to it, and it's because of that figurehead at the front of the ship that we call the front head, and therefore where we get the term headlight. When there's a light at the front at the head, that's why we call it a head, because the figurehead had a head on it, because it was a person, right? Okay. So when the sailors wanted to do their poo-poos and their wee-wees, well, poo-poos usually, I mean, you're just way off the edge, I suppose, wherever, but to do your solids, you would go to the head of the ship and you would sit on one of the beams and do your poops. So you would always poop at the head of the ship. So when they started to actually put toilets, the captain's cabin would have a latrine, by the way, although usually that was just a hole that went down into the sea as well, but whatever. But that's why we call toilets on ships heads, because you go to the head of the ship to poop. Right? Cool. So, story time. So you can explore this. These are the gunner stations. You can explore this at your leisure. But here is the bridge. This is where you would probably be wanting to control the ship by. All of the pilot seats have my usual LCD heads-up displays. The only difference is this captain seat here has these additional displays that show what's on and what's not. So if, for example, I turn on the main propulsion, you'll see a little light has lit up there. And that's so that if you are playing with some friends, you can sort of role play. So instead of piloting yourself from this chair, you can have one of your friends in one of these, and you can order them to turn on and off things, and you can see by the little lights whether they are off and need to be turned on need to be turned off, and whether they have followed your order. Blah, blah, blah. So there we go. The rest is RP. Oh, the dedication plaque. So I started so bear in mind the year is obviously different because this game is set 350 years in the future, so you take 350 off of that. And I started building the Commander class the 19th of September last year, finished it a couple of days ago. So that's why I'm struggling to remember things that I started to do at the beginning of the build, by the way, because that's 8 months and a week I figured out. Right, so that's the command module, decks 1 and 2. Now to get from the command module to the rest of the ship, there's the stairs up to the command deck. Deck 2, by the way, is the admin deck. There are stairs port and starboard. Yes, and yes. These go down to deck 3, and deck 3 is the officer's deck. Again, I will let you explore this at your leisure, but these are the officer's quarters. There's quarters all along this side. Oh, actually, yes, I'm in a good place to do this. Hang on. Train of thought. So there's officers' quarters all along this side, officers' quarters all along the other side. There are some of different sizes. So there's a small single occupant. There's a large single occupant, which I'm not going to be able to find now, but there are quite a few of those. I think there's a couple of... There you go. 2 occupants. Yes, a 2 occupants large. So let's do the officers' quarters first, and then I'll go back to the thing I just thought of. And this is what made me think of it. There are elevators, of course, going down to other decks, but we'll come back to those. So more quarters along here, more along there. Now the master cabin, the captain's quarters, is on the port side of this deck. So that's the bow, that's the stern, and the captain's quarters is here. Yeah. So he gets, or she gets, a full living area with a small bedroom and a small bathroom as well. Oh. No? Yes. Okay. So the things really here you would really want to know about is the galley up here. This is the officer's galley, but there's lots of fridges, some food processors, and some storage for other, food components. Now there is also the wardroom here, which is the officer's mess. Now I will go back to this later on, but the wardroom in reality seems to be a place where officers both lounge and mess. But this ship has a lounge and a wardroom, so this is this is the officers' lounge. Yes, there's a game of snooker going on here. I couldn't do pool, I'm sorry. It was that or nothing, so I did that. Right, now the thing that I thought about with the elevators, and I mentioned this earlier on and then forgot about it. So my ships tend to be logically laid out, so I consider them to be relatively easy to navigate. And this will be why. So on each deck, they might not be in necessarily the same place, but on each deck there is two longitudinal passageways, what you would call a corridor. There'll be one on the port and one on the starboard. Now, like I said, they're not always in the same place, so on deck 3 they're right at the sides, whereas other decks they would be actually not too much further inward. Actually, they might be about here, but whatever. Now on deck 6, the longitudinal passageways do dogleg around the two ranges, but so long as you follow the dogleg, you will still follow the corridor that runs from bow to stern. And then there is also lateral passageways, and generally speaking, where you see these crossover walkways up on top of the ship is where the lateral passageways are underneath in the other decks. Now, there may also be one there. Obviously, there isn't on this deck, because on this deck it's outside, and there obviously isn't on the one below, because the one below is just a hangar bay. But yeah, there will be lateral passageways where these crossover walkways are, and usually where this are, because the elevators is where the lateral passageways are. Where the crew quarters are on the lower decks, there may also be more, depending on the size and shape of the quarters. But that's if you're lost, obviously look for the signs on the wall that say fore and aft and all of that jazz, that tell you exactly which way you're facing and which way you're going. Just remember that fore is forward and aft is backward and port is left. If you're struggling to remember port and starboard, by the way, left is the shortest word out of left and right, and port is the shortest word out of port and starboard. So it's the two shortest words go together: port, left, starboard, right. I've tried to help as best I can. Right, so yes, this is this deck, and as I said, the two important things you would really need to know on this deck for this interior layout is you might want to live in the captain's quarters, and there's your kitchen. So again, you go down the deck, and as I've said before, this is a big hangar bay. This is the through deck hangar bay that runs from the stern to the bow, all the way over there, and it runs from side to side, as you can see from the windows. I would call them portholes, but I think portholes specifically are small, but I don't know. So here's where the elevators will go through past. You can come out onto the balcony through that door there, obviously. And why that's important, in case you want to fix any thrusters manually on the inside of the ship, these orange doors are the maintenance doors, basically engineering doors. And all 4 of the nacelles can be accessed from the walkways in this hangar bay, so you can fix all of your thrusters from up here if you need to or want to. Anything else? Yes, the mechanics workshops. There's 2, one on each side. They each have 2 small and an advanced constructor for you to repair vehicles and, you know, get ready for outings and stuff. Obviously the rest of this is just RP nonsense. Now this constructor outputs into that container and these 2 into that one, I believe. Yeah. I think that's it in here, yes. So it's just a big hangar bay for you to store SVs. Let's go down an actual elevator. I'm going to take... Oh, the elevators, so the very front one and the one that connects to the stairs up to the command deck do go all the way down to deck 7, which is that deck there. The 2 in between, so the ones attached to that crossover walkway and the ones attached to that crossover walkway, only go down to 6. No, they're 6. So, should we take... Yeah, let's take the front one. So down through the hangar bay. I'm obviously in God mode, so I'm getting it wrong a little bit. So, this is deck 5, the messing deck. This is where the crew live. So, the enlisted crew have their own galley and their own mess hall and their own lounge that also has heads. Oh, I didn't show you, but the officers one does as well. The only real important thing on this deck is right at the back. It's the upper part of the engineering. So we'll go through all of the enlisted quarters. Again, longitudinal passageway. There's the one that runs the length of the ship. Well, sort of. They basically run from the back of that so you imagine this crossover walkway is in the exact same place as the lateral passageways. They come off the back of that, the longitudinal ones. So at the back of that, like I said, is the upper deck of the engineering. Now the other than the ways into engineering, the only important bit here is, well, I suppose there isn't, because all of this can be accessed from engineering, so we'll actually come back to that. So actually, yeah, you can ignore all of that. Or I could use it to segue into engineering. Why not? So let's go down the back elevator. So, reactor room. This is where 4 of the primary generators are. There's a matching one on the other side, which is where the other 4 are. In this main, the front half of the engineering is where the rear gravity generator is, the offline protection, a couple of places in case you need to drive the ship from in here, and the magazine is in here too. Yeah, that's fine. Right, so here's the workshop. Shield generator is in the front of the back half of engineering. There's the warp drive and the pentaxid tank. The core is up there on the balcony, and the new station field repair is at the back there. The workshop is in here, the engineering workshop. This is where the one large and another of the advanced constructors are. There's also one small one up here. So these 2 are, I believe, connected to that container, and then this small one is connected to this one. The other side is RP, so I'm not going to bother showing you, but until the tour later on, the full tour. Your CPU extenders are down here, and through these doors are the thrusters, the stern thrusters, for you to fix them again from the inside if you want to, using the ladders and the stairs and the various stuff. So the lights at the top of this are on the sensor, and the lights further down are on that switch. Okay. Now that we are on the next deck down, so this is deck 6, the Citadel deck. Yep. Stop flashing lights. So here we have one of the O2 stores where your oxygen tanks are. There's another one on the other side. There's your fuel in between them. A lateral passageway. then we have the resupplying space stations that I've mentioned several times as a way in and out. So the idea is, obviously, as the name suggests, this is where supplies are brought into the ship. In between the two resupplying space stations is the cargo hold, where two of the four 320k SU containers are. On either side of those is the freshwater tanks, where, as I said earlier, is the other 320k SUs of cargo. Again, they're actually more than that, but you can't go above it. So it just means when you lose blocks, you won't for a while. Important stuff here. The midship gravity generator. Maybe the armory is slightly important. Here's the dog leg in the lateral passageway. But the other important thing up here is the sick bay, which is at the bow of the ship on deck 6. Now, most of this is RP, so the idea is wounded will be brought in through this door. They'll be triaged here. They'll be taken through into this room if needed for trauma care here, or resuscitation here. And I'm sure you can see the medical devices that are in here. Most of the rest now is RP, because all of the medical devices are here. So I'll cover the rest of that in the tour. So, going down to deck 7 through the front elevator. Deck 7 is the drop cruise deck, and the front of the drop cruise deck is the shuttle bay, which has obviously 2 doors on either side, one there and one there. What, am I too low? What's going on? Too far back. Yeah, okay. So you can store some shuttlecraft in here. There's a few amenities in here. Amenities? Yeah. So really up here, the only other thing important maybe is the armor lockers here before you go into the Quetzal Bay. So here we are on the upper walkway of the Quetzal Bay. Obviously there are plenty of ways down from that walkway. Lifts, elevators I should say. Elevators and elevators. This is deck 8 then. This is the Quetzal Bay deck, where we have also 2 mechanics workshops, where there are also some constructors. The other side is the same mirror image, other than this crane mechanism is in a slightly different place on the other side, but you know, whatever. Again, this one goes into this biggest, the bigger rear container, and the smaller rear constructors goes into the smaller rear container. Now, I will show you real quick, and I'm going to show you with the proper vehicle, because why not? The drop bay, since we're here. So the idea of this bay, again in lore, in universe, would be that this is actually parked in an incorrect spot, but whatever, never mind. So one of those drop ships would be parked in this marked area here. This marked area here would have one of those APCs that I showed you earlier. The APC would then move to the side and then up the ramp and into the dropship. It's important to note that while the SVs are docked to the CV, you then can't dock a HV in it. You need to take the CV off, no, the SV. You need to take the dropship off, the SV off slightly first. Yeah. So long as it's not docked, you can now get a HV in it. And of course, the HVs can sort of fly in space. So it's actually not much of a problem to take an SV off first before driving a HV into it. It won't work. But this is the idea of the drop bay. So again, like I said earlier, think about Aliens and the Sulaco and the Cheyenne dropship from that. And the M577. So you enter the sensor field to lower that door. You fly in. Oh, the the 15 meters per second speed limit signs, by the way, are obviously just fluff. RP fluff that makes sense in the lore of the universe. You can ignore them. I don't expect you to adhere to those speed limits. So, green lights mean you can go forward. The flashing orange means you're getting close. And then when it goes red, you stop. The door below you open, a big wood drop appears, and then you press down, and out the bottom of the ship you go. Okay, so... Oh, no, there are a couple of things other to show you, and I just remembered them. So, fuel. I showed you that big fuel store in the middle of the ship on the Citadel deck, in between the two oxygen stores. There are actually more fuel around. Oh, and there's the detector in here. So, behind the detector, in this little bit hanging off the bottom of the ship, holding up this antenna array here, is in fact more fuel, because I was worried about how much fuel the ship had, and this was just an empty space, so I filled it. I was still worried about how much fuel the ship had, so there were a couple of blocks spare there under these stairs leading up to the command module that I've put a couple of more tanks in. And then I modified the bottom of the crossover walkways and the stairs to also house another fuel tank. I'm not too worried about these ones because there should be nothing targetable near them in order to cause them to explode. But there you go. There is more fuel tanks around the ship than I have already shown you. Okay, so that's the end of that segment. The next segment then is going to be its shortcuts and signals. So, starting with the device group's shortcuts, and as I'm sure you saw earlier, and hopefully you probably know from other builds, this is of course all shown in the heads-up, the heads-up displays on the bridge for all of the seats. Not in the engineering, I couldn't be bothered to do it down there, but on the bridge it shows them on every seat that can fly the ship. So the first device group shortcut is the main thrusters. So as I pointed out earlier, there are some ahead full thrusters that this switch doesn't turn on. It also turns on those anti-collision beacons that I was talking about earlier too. So we got the flashing red ones on top and the flashing yellow ones on the bottom. The next device group signal down. Oh, I always forget this. Now that I'm thinking about it, I will talk about it. Although there is a device group called Please Don't Auto Group. Please don't click the auto group button. A lot of these signals and we'll get to that when in a minute. A lot of it relies on these custom groups. If you do accidentally auto group, I think so long as you have saved a template, you can go and repair the ship on a repair block or something, and it will restore all of the device groups. Right, so ahead full, it just turns on the extra forward thrusters that I pointed out earlier. The one there, the match one on the other side. The two on the back of the four nacelles, forward nacelles as well. So, next one is blank, and I leave that because most of the time, again, as I've said in other videos, I should have been doing it with the HVs, but I didn't think about it at the time. I started to do it with the SVs. These are almost always in the same order, so that, other than that is normally max lift, and then if it's a ship that has max lift and a head full, then obviously I need to put it somewhere else, usually there or something, but they are usually in the same order, which means that when it doesn't have something like drill turrets, the drill turret switch is left empty. That's why there are empty ones. So the emergency power, I need the right deck, is the one, I didn't show them, did I? So here is the emergency power generators, two there and two on the other side. That switch is what will turn them on. You didn't really get a good look at that, but never mind. There. So, in case you take damage on one side of the ship and you lose these 4, you can turn on emergency power, and it can at least help you get out of there. Yeah. So, life support does a lot on this ship, or more accurately, power save does less. So normally that switch is the air vents switch. Now this life support switch does still do the air vents, and in case you haven't seen a tour of mine before, I will cover this, but if you have, I'm going to go through it quickly just so it's not too boring. If we have a look at the power left and we turn oxygen off, you will see that power left doesn't change, but if we turn life support off, it does. That's how much difference all those 270 ventilators make. I think they only use 5 power units each, but there's 270 of them. So there you go, I've given you that in case you need to save any power. However, what this does differently to just the air vent switch is it will also turn off the gravity generators and all of the light switches and sensors that control all the lights and stuff in here. Normally that would be on the power save, but I've put it on life support because it makes a bit more sense to be on life support. Production and repair, that will turn on and therefore off as well. That repair device, the control station for it, it'll also turn on and off all of the constructors that I've shown you around the place, including these ones. Obviously you can turn them on manually by going to them and is that it? Yeah, that's the on-off switch manually, isn't it? But at least this way you got a way to turn them all off at once in case you leave some on around the ship. Where am I going? Because my brain, I was thinking I need to go to the right now. Of course, I mean the right in this menu, but my brain got mixed up and I was going to the right in the world. I was flying to the right. So, next then, the signal shortcuts. The power save, as I've said, doesn't do as much in this one. It doesn't do the lights, the light sensors and stuff. It does do the LCDs that are on the bridge. Now, all of the labels, these ones that tell you what the room is that you would be going into and which passageway you're walking down and all of that, are all on the light control sensors. So they'll be off anyway if you... yeah, you know what I mean. So, power save will turn off the wireless, the Wi-Fi's. Oh, the ingress lights as well. It will turn them off. That's the, as I said earlier, the light green lights at the on-foot entry points. And the name and registry displays. It will turn these off as well. Okay, so the next one, general quarters. Ah, yes. So general quarters is what you would know as Red Alert if you watch Star Trek, or what you would know as general quarters if you are, well, if you're US Navy, you would know it as general quarters. In the Royal Navy, it would be action stations. So this turns on the shields, it turns on all of the weapons, and depending on where you are in the ship, it will also turn on the, I mean, you could call them red alert lights, I would suppose, just not red. I mean, they are red, so they are around the ship, and they will only come on based on where you are. So you see, that one doesn't come on when I'm not within the sensor field that controls the lights around it. I'm losing my voice. Another thing it also does is it turns on the general quarters routes signs. Now, again, this is lore. It's supposed to be, it makes sense in universe. It doesn't mean you have to follow these. It would be part of the ship if it was a naval ship. But again, you are in a survival situation. You've co-opted a naval ship to help you survive, I suppose. But these are correct. So up and forward on the starboard side. So forward. and up and down and aft on the port. So we're on the port side now. There's down and here, aft. Yeah, so they're all correct as well. So that's general quarters. Interior defense turns on the sentry turrets. Now there are some. There's actually less than I wanted, and I couldn't be bothered to fix. So there's one on the bridge here. There's two outside of the bridge before any intruders get to the doors. Then there are a whole bunch around the armory and the brig. There we go. So there's a couple in the corridor here, one in the armory, and two in the brig. There's also two in the engineering, either side of these control seats, just to stop any, or supposedly any intruders flying away in your ship from engineering. Now there was actually two more in the ceiling here protecting the core. But when I ripped out all the blocks here to make the ceiling of engineering half blocks and the shapes and the detailing and stuff, I forgot that they were there, ripped them out because they just looked like blocks because they were retracted. And then, like I said, by the time I noticed, I thought, okay. So the last two are quite simple. The nav lights, those are the green on the starboard, the red on the port, and the white on the stern lights that I talked about earlier. And the flight strobes, which, to be honest, I would have liked to have been automatic when the ship is moving, but you can't do it in this game. But those are again the bright white flashing ones that you see on the wingtips of planes. Righto, that's the end of that section. So the next section is going to be CPU and upgrading. So it is tier 4 and it comes under by quite a way, 8,650,000 out of the 10 million you are allowed. Now, in case you are skipping through the video, I will show you real quick where the core is. So behind this protective armor and the logshot armor, you will find the core in the very aft end of engineering, and the tier 4 CPU extenders are in here as well. Engineering is on deck 6. Upgrading. Well, there isn't really an upgrade path. However, that doesn't mean you can't personalize the ship, as I have mentioned a couple of times already. Actually, I should be over the other side, I think, for the sun. Oh, it doesn't make a lot of difference. Headlight on then. So, one of the reasons I don't mind building a ship that makes more sense in universe than it does in the game is when you get hold of it and you personalize it, you feel like you own the ship more because you've done some work on it. Now, my first experience of that for myself was in StarMade. Now, anybody who has ever called this game Minecraft in space has never played StarMade, because StarMade really is Minecraft in space. Now, when I played it many years ago, there was only, well, when we started playing, there was only one block shape in the game, and that was a cube. They have added others since, slopes and stuff. Now, the only NPC ship in the game was called the Isanth 6. No idea what the first 5 looked like, but they called it the Isanth 6. No idea what an Isanth is either, by the way. Now, the pirates would attack you in the Isanth 6s, and depending on how well your turrets did against them, which of course you had to build out of blocks, it's not turret blocks like it is here, sometimes you would be left like wrecks, hulks of the isantheses, and sometimes it would be like a hole straight through to the core block. Yeah, it had a core block just like this. And most of the rest of the ship was intact. So you would use bits of other wrecks to do one up so that you had a ship to use. And that was my first experience of personalizing a ship that already existed. And like I said, it made it feel like it was mine because I had worked on it. And that's, I mean, you could argue I'm trying to force that on other people. I might even agree with you, but that's why I do it. Is because I want you to feel like this is your commando class, you know? So, in terms of personalizing, and I mentioned earlier it has no grow plots and what you could do instead. This is what I would do, and you might notice, so these are the multi-use halls down on, again, deck 6, funny enough. And you might notice that I've used square lights, and the square lights are exactly 2 blocks apart. So it doesn't take a genius, I think, to figure out that you can replace these with grow lights. And what you would then do is, you would put the grow plots directly on the ground, so that now you've got 2 blocks in between them and the lights, obviously one for the plants and one for the lights and stuff and switches. Rip out these and replace them with blocks, the windows and the doors going in, because obviously they would be blocked by the grow plots. And then maybe something like here, take out a window, put a door in, and then a set of stairs down by 1 block, so that you can then walk around on these. And this room would be quite good, I think, for quite a lot of grow plots, depending on how many you need or want. There is, of course, not only the other multi-use hall on the other side, whose markings, by the way, are different for different sports, but you could also turn the gym into another grow plot area. Here's something else you could do, and I might as well. So from there forwards, the only thing on deck, or the only things on deck 5 is crew quarters, and for quite a lot of the way on deck 6 is just offices. So what I would do, let me find actually where... So up to here, no, no? Yes, so up to this wall here, what I would do is rip out both decks. So that would be from, yeah, funny enough, it's from that white tank, isn't it? 1 block forward of that white tank. So from there, both decks until... Ooh... There, the back of this corridor, actually, and then put a couple more big doors in the side, and now you've got yourself even more hangar space. That's what I would do. Rip all of this out and turn this area into more hangars. Now, like I said, from here you've now got the cargo container. That is the water tank, supposedly. Those fuel tanks and the cargo containers of the cargo hold on this deck. But the next deck up is still more crew quarters. So again, you could rip all of this out just on this deck. I mean, that's quite a big space. Fill this with more cargo containers and you're going to have so much cargo that you won't need anything else. So you have lots of hangar space, and obviously it would be work, but if it's something you're interested in to make the ship your own, that's what I would suggest. There isn't actually any inbuilt upgrade path, so there's no slots or empty space earmarked for things like more generators or more fuel or anything. So it would just be personalisation that you can do. I'm not entirely sure if this ship would be compatible with Reforged Eden 2, because again, you can rip stuff out and put in some of the Reforged Eden 2 stuff, like more CPU cores and stuff. Yeah, so it would be possible. I mean, even Deck 3, the officers' decks, you're probably not even going to need all of that. There is one more thing to cover, which I consider to be part of the upgrading, or at least part of the personalisation. It comes with 4 primary colours. Now, it comes in this navy style light blue grey, but it also comes with this khaki tan, and full disclosure, this is the colour I actually built it in. And the primary colour has been used on the inside. If I can get the lights to turn off, you can see that the primary is on the inside as well. I personally think the interior looks better with the khaki tan than it does with the silver, the light blue grey. But you know, the outside looks better in the light blue grey. It also comes with this camouflage green that might also be appropriate, considering this is to base and deploy Marines. And it also comes with this Air Force style dark blue grey that obviously goes quite well with the already dark grey. So there you go. Obviously you can change colours as you wish, but those are the ones that come as part of the palette. Right, so that's the end of that segment. So the next and last segment is the other info. And as I said earlier, this is where I'm going to do the full tour, as it were. But first, I have a couple of things to say and show you. Now, the first thing, actually, let's pause it, is the ship that was based on. And that's that. This is some ship from some mod of Freelancer. Apparently it's called the Caterpillar class. Although I have played Freelancer, and I played it a lot, I hadn't played the mod that this ship was part of. But when I was researching ships ages and ages and ages ago, I think actually for StarMade, I came across this image online just from a Google search of spaceships, I suppose. And I really liked it. I liked its sort of simplicity. I liked the implication of those dark grey squares along the top. These here, I wasn't sure if they were like cargo bay doors that opened up and you could put cargo into. I kind of like the idea of so these doors, these panels down here that I'm pointing at now are actually the same as these. It's just they're shaded, but you can just make out the lines of the hexagon pattern on this panel here and just about on there. But I kind of it triggered my imagination for whether these were again bay doors that opened up and maybe cargo shuttles would come in and out ferrying the cargo, and maybe these ones were cargo bays or cargo holds that weren't open to space. So unlike these where they open to space and you could drop cargo directly in, and these ones were cargo shuttle bays that brought cargo in, these ones I suppose you would teleport them in or something, or maybe the whole thing maybe slots out. I just thought of that. But yeah, this ship got my imagination going. I obviously figured that this would be the crew quarters all along here. I'm guessing that's what the person who made this modded ship thought as well. Obviously this bit sort of became the mess hall. The bridge up here has changed a bit. Oh, let's go back to but there you go. That's the ship it's based on. So I can't really take full credit for how it looks. Now I will say as well that the bridge, I changed the bridge because I thought that was quite a boring, it was just a rectangle really. Now I should also, since I'm being transparent, point out this is the Leviathan class space carrier, I think he calls it, Jeff Randall. And yeah, so if we have a quick look at the front of my bridge, and then we have a quick look at the front of his, I mean, it's slightly different. I've obviously carried this window further up. I've moved them down. No, I haven't actually, have I? It's just that has gone further up. But the thing is, I was really struggling with the front of my command module. Stop it with the green dots. And yeah, I decided to take inspiration. So the image I had in my head when I then looked at this was similar. This is similar to what I had in my head. So I used this to get that. I mean, you might not be able to see unless I show you a side-by-side picture. If I can be bothered in the editing, I will, but I probably won't. But there is some slight differences. Yeah. So thank you, Jeff, for the front of your bridge. But I did do something different. Right. So that's that bit out of the way. The other thing is, I want to talk about how difficult it was finding out information about actual naval, in real world, naval ships and command structure. Let's go to those offices, actually, because I do want to talk about them real quick. So I put on the screens in the offices what the crew would be. And I was really struggling with a lot of things. So I used the US Marines and US Air Force and the UK military ranks. I sort of merged them in together because I figure in 350 years' time, I would imagine... I don't really know the full lore of the actual universe of Empyrion, but I think we are some sort of united Earth, I guess. So I figured it would sort of be an amalgamation of everyone's rank structure, so that's what I've sort of done. And if you go around, you may see things that don't quite comport to reality. There's a lot of things that I couldn't find at all, and I just had to sort of make it up. So I just wanted to explain that a little bit. It might not be exactly accurate is the word I'm looking for. I've did my best with some Google searches, but so one of the things I did is I simplified this. So in Officer 1 level, you've got several ranks, and in my opinion, that makes no sense. So, for example, you might find that, like, the other ranks, I think, goes up to 10 or something. That's because I put one rank into each number. So if you start seeing inaccurate things like that because you are, in fact, ex-military or current military or whatever, again, I tried as a civilian. The information isn't particularly easy to find. Oh, for example, I mean, I can't imagine this would be top fucking secret or anything, but I've called on the crew deck where the showers are, I've called them ablutions blocks. Now, technically, that only applies to not even just land bases. I think it's just army bases. But I couldn't find for the life of me what a room full of showers would be called on a ship. In fact, I couldn't even find what the room on a ship with toilets in it is called. So I know that obviously a toilet is referred to as a head. But if it's a room with a toilet and showers, what's that called? Bathroom? Shower room? I honestly, it was driving me mental. So again, I just sort of made it up and used bits and pieces from searches that I found, like using ablutions for that, even though it might not necessarily be exact. As far as I'm concerned, if you want civilians to use the correct military terms, make it easier to find. Yeah, so there we go. Right. I think that is now... Oh, there is one more thing to do before I do the tour, and that is actually going to be publish the ship. It's something I always do in my tour videos. So let's do it now. No. I Alt and F2'd instead of just F2 in. There we go. Probably going to take a while. There we go, because it's big. And publish. There we go. Righto, so if you don't want to see... I'm going to say full tour of the interior. It actually isn't. I mean, there are multiple crew cabins that are just replicas of each other. I mean, I literally copied and pasted the crew cabins. So I won't be showing every single room. But if you don't want to see the interior and you want to explore it yourself, do feel free to leave now. And to those leaving, thank you very much, goodbye, and all the stuff I normally say at the end, and pretend there's the cinematic of the ship with the links at the end. Righto, so I'm going to start again, as I did with the interior layout, at the on-foot entry into the airlock, and I'm going to come out of God mode as well. Oh! Fuck it. They've already gone, haven't they? I mean, it will be in the description as well. I wanted to make a point of which doors are automatic and which ones aren't. But there you go. Never mind. So for those who are still here, doors that are... Let's get the paint tool out. Doors that are painted in that very dark grey that look black, that are also painted in this silver colour that look white, and that are painted in this maintenance orange, are all manual. So any orange, silver, or really very dark grey doors you have to open yourself. Any doors that are like this, the hull colour, or that are its tertiary colour, which is the military green there, are in fact automatic. So that one's automatic. Right. So we had a look in the airlock earlier, and we had a look in the EVA prep room earlier on as well. Labels and signs and stuff. So, I should point out as well that these things I consider to be my my intercom panels. So when one part of a ship needs to talk to another part of the ship, these will be used. Now there are some like desks, computer desks, that I consider would do the same thing as part of the actual computer on the desk. So there may be some places where there aren't these and you might think there should be, and it's usually because there's a computer nearby, label, that would do it as well. So in here, these constructors, oh yeah, that's another thing I didn't point out. So it's the port side 320k cargo container that is in the cargo hold is the one that is used for the input for all of the constructors. And then the output, so this one outputs to that cargo box, and this one outputs to that cargo box. You might be able to tell because I painted it the same colour. That's why they are the same colours, because I painted them that way. Oh, a teleporter, I'm sure you know. We put them on a sensor so that they don't use loads of power while they're not in use, while they're not needed. Right, so we didn't really look at this deck. So deck 2 is the admin deck, and like I said earlier, this is deck 2 section 2, so technically this is part of the admin deck as well, despite not being anything to do with admin. So on the admin deck are some of the senior officers' offices, the officers' offices, the offices for the officers, because the officers, that's why they're called officers, because they have an office. Right. So the executive officer, that's the second in command of the ship. Again, black door, manual only. Why did I close it? I need to walk back out through it. Unfortunately, that's the only place I could get the force field to make this office airtight, or more accurately, the rest of the deck airtight if this took damage. Not much of a view in here, but you've got armor protecting the combat module, combat module. So, I mean, you can have a view or you can have protection, not really, but both. But I mean, you can wave to people walking along the corridor down there, I suppose. So yeah, desk, chair, light switch. Hang on, let's turn my headlight off. So the lights in here are on a motion sensor, that one, but obviously when you get in a chair, you're no longer in motion, so the motion sensors don't sense you. So you turn the switch on, blah blah blah. Anytime there are light sensors and a lever, that'll be why, most of the time. Now each of these offices has its own head in here, so that they can do their business in private, as it were. So we have the bosun's office. The bosun is the highest ranking enlisted crew, so non-commissioned officer. This will be the chief warrant officer of the naval crew on board. The office is basically the same. I think it's actually one block smaller and doesn't have the bookshelf thing and doesn't have as many benches. But other than that, it's the same. Also with a head. Then we have the officer in command of the Space and Air Forces. So that is obviously the Air Force. Now I called it Space and Air Force. So the US has a Space Force, which makes sense. I mean, it sounds a bit kind of, you know, 1960s sci-fi, doesn't it? Space Force. But then, if Air Force is a force that operates in the air, then why the hell wouldn't the force be operating in space be called the Space Force? It makes sense that it is. So the fact that the SVs on this ship would be piloted not by the naval crew or the Marines, and the only obviously the US Marines will operate their own helicopters and jet fighters and stuff. The only reason I don't do that is because I wanted to give the Air Force something to do on the ship. So I've said that actually the Marines and the Navy don't fly the auxiliary craft, and it's the Air Force and the Space and Air Force that is responsible for that. So yeah, I'm not going to bother showing you the actual offices because they are the same. The officer in command of the Marines has his own office. There are some duty heads, so the people on the bridge, when they need to go potty, they can go potty. There's one on this side and one on the other side. Again, these green doors are automatic and these silver ones aren't. The silver colour, by the way, is my is what I designate for anything to do with water. So the water tanks are that. The toilets are that, the sinks are that, and of course the toilet doors, in case you care. Again, there are plenty of signs. Now this deck is slightly different than the others. So all the other decks, this sign is next to this sign, and each deck has both. So when we go down to deck 3, you'll say that deck 3 has this sign, and deck 3 has this sign. But up here on the command deck, space was limited for more signs, but there's so little up here, I didn't think it was necessary. So deck 2 has that, and not one of these, and then deck 1 has these, but not one of them. So, 3 ways up, there's the main stairs that are accessible directly from these. There's also the 2 side stairs that the people in these offices would probably use to get up and down between them. Right, so we have, let's go here first, just because it was what I saw first. The duty roster, you can come and have a look at this and see sort of what the rank structure of the ship, or at least for the command deck, is concerned. Then, as I pointed out earlier, we have some directories. And on the sides, we have some RP fluff. We have the communications stations for the ground operations. So these will be people conveying orders and communications from like the commanders of the Marines up here on the ship and the Marines down on the surface of a planet. We have the same for the Space and Air Force. This is so you'd have the, you know, squadron leader up here, I suppose, giving orders to the craft, and the orders would be relayed via these comms officers. That's supposed to be a command no, a control station, whoops, for, oh my god, press the right button, for the antenna array on top. Oh, did I point out? Well, I sort of did. So there's a Wi-Fi in both of the one on top and the one underneath the antenna arrays. They each have a Wi-Fi in them. Yeah. So these are the gunnery stations, as you can tell by the sign, gunnery station. And each of these is slightly different depending on the weapons that they are supposedly controlling. As you can see, the crosshairs is different. The range might be different. Why do they sort? What? Oh. Stuff it. They all say NA. They're not supposed to. So if we go and have a look at the signs on the other side, I'm sure I saw them earlier, and one of them had. Oh, I'm such a moron. There's the range of the turrets at the top. So these are, yeah, the secondary warship turrets. So this would be the pulse laser turrets, as you can tell by the weapons in the group. So that's the range of a pulse laser turret. Here's a point defense turret, so there's the range of a Gatling turret. Blah, 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 flat turrets and all of that. Now, what I was looking at the bottom, the range equals NA, is the range to the target that supposedly the gunner has locked onto. Obviously, it's RP, and there is nothing that the gunner is locked onto. There are no targets to lock onto. It's just an LCD screen, but that's what that means. Duh. Right. Oh, that's a red alert light, by the way. I mean, a general quarters light. Whatever. So, main bridge. We had a fairly decent look in here earlier. I showed you the dedication plaque. The rest in here is, again, just RP fluff. There are some passenger seats if you want to bring some friends along. Well, I say there are some passenger seats. On the bridge there are some. All around the ship there are hundreds. Hundreds and hundreds of desks and chairs and seats and desk chairs and sofas. So here's the captain's office, the CO's office. Again, black door, so manual only. You don't want this opening and closing while you're, you know, having a conversation with your executive officer or your chief medical or whatever. So this is the captain's office. Again, head for private poos. So through this door, actually I will go out the other side. This is the situation room. For those who watch The Next Generation, this would be, that's automatic by the way, this door. So this would be the conference room. Of course it's a situation room on a military vessel. Yeah. And as you can see, I mean, if without the passenger seats, you could still put people in here because they can sit in these. And again, a light switch for sitting in seats to leave the lights on. Oh, these things are the AI interface. I imagine that the ship's computer has an AI, much again like Star Trek, and these consoles are where you would interact with the artificial intelligence, is why I put these on my ships, in case you care. Okay, so that's decks 1 and 2. Now, let's show you some of the officers' quarters. Ah, yes, so this is a single occupancy large cabin. As you can see, I also put on a little sign on the side of the door that tells you who should be assigned to these quarters. I'm guessing the quartermaster or the executive officer would do that kind of stuff. And then when you're in there, your name and rank would be displayed so people know who's in which room. Yeah, this is what I was talking about with the OF numbers. Some of these are actually different from real life, but, you know, whatever. So here's what this cabin comes with. So there's no motion sensor in here for the lights. All of the crew quarters is a lever only. Actually, let's leave it on. Most of the time it's an orange light like that. Now the large single occupancy quarters is a bigger quarter. And they get a separate little washroom in there like that. and a single bed. I would have liked a bunk, really, a single bunk. And when we get to the bunks, I will show you what I mean. Does this have one? So this is a slightly different quarters. This is a small single occupancy for those ranked people. And as you can see, there's no door, slightly less room in here, no desk. I kind of like the idea of using these. I did start just using normal glass, but I kind of didn't like the idea of, especially with the officer's deck, of people walking past and having a look and you're asleep, you know, because you're on the night shift or whatever. So I like the fact that these are one way. That's kind of cool. Right, so I need to look for a different cabin now. They might actually be further back. Oh, there is one right at the bow. Ah, here we go. Here's a different one. So 2 people in this one. It's a large 2 occupancy quarters. The small 2 occupancy quarters are on the messing deck. But here's the kind of people who would be in this cabin. So it's basically the same cabin as what we've already looked at, this one. Except instead of a double bed, it's a double bunk. And here's what I mean about I wanted to see, if you chop that off from there, you don't have the bunk on top and you don't have the ladder. That's the kind of bed that would really have been on the ship. But you can't. And in case, I know there is another bed other than that one, but I use that as my patient beds in my sick bay. So when we get to sick bay, well, we were in sick bay earlier. So that's where I use the other bed. So we looked at the captain's quarters earlier, and we looked at the lounge, the wardroom, and the galley. So we don't actually need to go to the aft end of this deck. So this cabin and the matching one on the other side is slightly different just because of the shape at the the front of this bit of the hull. You see, this cabin is in this bit. So it's possible. I would imagine the executive officer would actually be at the back of the ship, nearest to the command stairs. But maybe you would have. Oh, so yeah, I was about to say the chief medical officer. Of course, this lift goes directly down to the sick bay. So yeah, that would make perfect sense. You would have chief medical officer here. I don't know who would be in the other one, but it's a relatively large... Oh, the engineer, I suppose, although he's got a long walk to go to engineering, but even still. Or she. Right. Well, I mean, so when I say the 001 IMV Commando would be mine, I would... So every time my friends and I have played games where we've been on a ship that I've built, I have never been captain. I've always been the chief engineer because it's my ship. I built the ship, I know it inside and out, so it makes more sense for me to be the chief engineer. Okay, so that's decks 1, 2 and 3 done. Let's go down to deck 4 again. So here's deck 4 section 2, the walkways down each side. Now I am actually going to go into one of the nacelles this time, but you get a nice view of the through deck hangar bay from up here. So again, orange is manual only, an orange door, and the lights in here are on this switch. So again, as I said earlier, this is where you'd come if you want to fix your thrusters manually with your repair tool or whatnot. I've tried my best to make sure you can access them all. Some of them are a little bit difficult, but you know, whatever. It's all RP fluff anyway, so you know. So the front and back of the nacelle are mirror images. The only difference in the middle is this bit, RP fluff consoles, and then the stairs down for the lower thrusters, where there is more RP fluff. Yes. So fixy biz and stuff. So there you go. Oh, lag. It's the only problem with a ship this big. Lag. Okay, so let's go down to the deck of the through deck hangar bay deck. In case you're wondering, that's like a little defense point that's on top of this elevator entry and exit point structure thing. So if if anyone decides to breach your hangar bay doors, this is where the any Marines who happen to be in here, or any officers, because I'd imagine that, and this will become relevant later on when we get to the officers and the brig, but I imagine all the naval personnel will be carrying sidearms while aboard, and all the Marines would probably have at least a sidearm as well, if not a full rifle, I would have thought. So yeah, if you're boarded through these hangar doors, these are defense points. Of course, it's bollocks because it's carbon composite. It's just, again, it's storytelling, isn't it? So the only real things to show you in here is the workshops at the back. But we had a look at them earlier on. So I'm not sure there's anything else to show you. Oh! Yeah, I didn't show you up there. Yeah, there is something extra here. So up this elevator here is... So this, it's kind of a funny thing. So this is the main bay deck, is what deck 4 is called. And the main bay, which is the bay that is on the main bay deck, has deck crew. So the deck crew on the main bay are called the main bay deck crew. This isn't main bay deck crew. So the idea is that mechanics and the specialists, the technicians and that kind of stuff, when they're not doing stuff, so I call these tinker tables, and I've called them that in the devices thing. Now I did a Google search, and a tinker table tends to be used by children for tinkering with things rather than engineers and technicians and mechanics. But again, I sort of thought 350 years in the future, who knows, that may have changed its meaning since and by then. Toilets. So yeah, the idea is that when they're not working on vehicles, they could be up here, you know, writing emails and writing papers or whatever, you know, doing their other duties, and then a ship comes back in that's damaged. They're here ready, they're on duty here, and so they're close by for when they're needed, is the idea. Okay. Got to remember we're now at the aft end. If only there were some signs around to let me know. There are in here, by the way. You might not have seen it, but yes, there are some in here. Okay, so now we're going down to the messing deck, and we're at the back of the messing deck. We're going to ignore engineering because we're going to go to the front on this deck, down to the next deck, which engineering is actually on. Although you can access engineering from up here, we're going to come back to the back of the ship from the front once we get back here. Okay. So, ablutions blocks then. Well, I did look earlier, because this is where I was talking about what you call a room with a head and showers in it, blah blah blah. So we also have some quarters, and here we have a 4 occupancy quarters. The no S and H stands for no showers and no heads. You get 2 bunk beds, so 4 people. 2 people have to share a closet. And they do get a window. Unfortunately for these guys, they're looking onto the interior passageway. So here we have another one of these. And again, it tells you the kind of person who would be in there. Again, the numbers might be different from real life because, again, it's 350 years in the future. I've taken it upon myself to say things will have changed and shifted around and simplified by then. This is a 2 occupancy. This is slightly different. So each occupant in here gets a closet. They don't get a shower, but they do get a head. Hence H, but there is no S, so there's no shower. Seen in there already. Oh, the people in there will be Low ranking. Yeah. Either no ranks or junior NCOs in these. Okay. Another ablutions block. One occupancy. Oh, with a shower and head. Have we looked at that? Yes, because it's the same. Basically the same one as on the officer's deck. Now. This is one of the large ablutions blocks. Large. So this, a large ablutions block has 2 heads at each end. So at this end there's 2. And you can just make out the doors of the other 2. And then there's loads and loads of showers. So considering maybe 3/4 of the crew cabins on this ship has a shower. Well, 3/4 of the cabins, but that probably makes up a half of the crew. So actually, yeah, you've got about a half of the 350-ish people need to have access to showers. So that's why there are lots of showers, and you will see there are lots of showers. Now, I have been sad enough to give the people on board one of these. And the thing is, it makes sense, because there are going to be Marines on board, and these Marines are going to be going down onto planets and doing, you know, combat exercises, training for battle. On board, so especially in those multi-use halls, they will be doing sports, they will be doing physical training, you know, star jumps and running, jogging, all of that kind of stuff. They're going to get sweaty, and although the game doesn't tell us our clothes need washing, it sort of makes sense that in universe that kind of thing would need to be considered. Light switches up there, by the way, and I've used obviously these boxes as the the washing machines. Now I figured that these ones would be used. These ones, the big banks of the washing machines, would be used by the stewards, who would be collecting people's uniforms and undergarments and stuff. And then these ones here, you could come and use yourself for when, you know, you wet the bed or something and you don't want the steward to know, so you come and bring your own washing, that kind of thing. Let's see if we can find another cabin that we haven't seen. No, we haven't. So the only thing left then on this deck, I think, is the Marine berths. So these are 8-man berths, as you can see. Oh, duh. So the Lance Corporal and the Corporal, who are the section commander and the section 2IC, would be in the posh bunks, and then the shitty bunks are for the shitty privates, is the idea. However, they do get 2 heads, and although this one and the matching one on the other side of the ship are the only 2 that do, these 2 Marine berths have a porthole out the window. You know what I mean? A porthole out the hull to look outside the ship. So here's what one of these Marine berths looks like without the window. It has an air vent instead. So the so there's the main longitudinal passageway, and simply because in order to get more smaller crew quarters, I have other passageways that also run longitudinally as well, but whatever. Now these ones I've left. Now some of the lower ranking crew members will have their cabin doors coming out onto this corridor. I try to avoid it because these corridors would have the most foot traffic. And I sort of thought, well, they're low ranking, fuck them. Oh, hang on, there was a slightly different ablutions block back here. Yes. So here, behind this wall, and you can hear it, is the gravity generator down on the top, the next deck down. Of course, it is. That's the wrong green, but I can't be bothered to fix it. Yeah, so that's why this corridor bends around like this. It's because that gravity generator comes to there. It's 2 blocks high, and the decks on this ship, I forgot to mention that as well. So the way I build my ships, a civilian ship, the decks themselves are 2 blocks high, so this block and then a block above of free space for putting lights and stuff, and then the ceiling and or deck of the deck above, the deck plating. But on a military ship, the decks are all 1 block. Bleh, bleh. Fucking up my words. Right, so I think we're done. You have now seen a example of every cabin or berth on the messing deck now. Again, you've seen this already, but there's the gym, and there's one of the multi-use halls. So from up here you can see, you know, Marines and whatnot playing their basketball or their soccer or whatever. We get to the front of the ship on the messing deck, and we have the crew mess and lounge. Now in here is the chief steward's office, who is a sub-lieutenant of the Navy. Some of you might say lieutenant. Yeah, so this is their office. Now there are some officers' toilets on this deck just here, because there are some officers, despite the fact that this is the enlisted crew deck, basically, there are officers that will be working here. The chief steward, of course, would be one of them. There may be I think the head cook is also an officer, so you know, you don't want them peeing in the same place as the privates, do you know what I mean? Because those bowls will be quite messy, I would say. So we did see the galley earlier on. It may have been no, I think we saw this galley, but then we saw the officers' wardroom and lounge, didn't we? But they're basically the same, except as the officers' ones. Except the officers' ones, this bit is extended because I needed somewhere above the hangar bay doors to put the sensors. Now, this partition is retractable. Now, obviously, you can do it just by clicking on the door, or you can open them both. This is quite sad, but this is why I've done it. I figured that Christmases, the captain's birthday, for example, the anniversary of the formation of whatever, you know, whatever branch of the military you happen to be serving in, whenever there's a celebration, I would imagine that this all could be cleared away, pushed to the side or whatever, and this is where you'd have your events, your parties, your discos and shit, you know. So that's why I've done a partition. I know it's quite sad I wasn't quick enough. Hang on. I missed the switch. Okay. I also forgot to mention that these consoles I consider to be my long-range comms consoles. So when you need to talk to people elsewhere, so if you want to call home, for example, this is the console you would do it. Is my headlight on? No, it's not. So this is the lounge. Now there are NCO heads for, you know, lance corporals, corporal sergeants, that kind of jazz. Chief technicians and whatnot. And then the non-ranking people, they can piss on their toilets in here. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, I mean, we even give a lance corporal the option not to sit on someone else's business. Yes, so as I mentioned earlier, this is a game of snooker. Little bit of an Easter egg. I did put on the bottom of that projector. I tried to get pockets in the corners. It didn't work. I also tried to do pool. I would have liked pool because pool is more popular than snooker. Snooker, as far as I know, tends to be played just in Britain, and pool tends to be played globally. But I mean, I'm sure you know what LCDs are like. You'd try and get stripes on those balls. It's fucking impossible. So I didn't. So you've got snooker instead. Yes. So that's the end of that. This deck. Let's go down to the next deck, the Citadel deck, and we'll have a proper look through the sick bay this time. So again, you would bring wounded in here, especially Marines who have been injured in combat. They would be triaged in the triage room. Now I've left this blank because the idea is you would bring stretchers in here, and you would probably line them up all along this wall. We got some LCD work stuff. So a quick backstory to this, if I can make it quick. My friends and I played the modded version of GTA 5, 5M, and we played on a role-playing server called Cloud City. On that server, I joined the paramedics, and I mean, I have some very, very, very limited first aid knowledge. Very limited. And I put that to use, and apparently people were impressed. So I then wrote myself, it was for me, a guide for how I was going to roleplay a paramedic, and I did some Google research, so not particularly extensive research for certain things, and I wrote a guide. For transparency, I showed the people in charge the guide that I was going to use to roleplay, because I didn't want to start roleplaying in a way that people might have a problem with. I can't imagine why they would, but I just wanted to make sure. So I showed them it. I got promoted to third in command and was put in charge of training. So this stuff is what I've sort of gleaned from that training manual that it then became. Now, I said to them, and I'm going to say to you as well, some of this, and in fact, much like all of the military jargon and stuff, it's really hard to find the exact definitions and terms and stuff. So some of this might not be 100% accurate. It's kind of it's good enough for role play kind of level. So there you go. That's what I've done there. And there are a couple more. That's automatic. That one's manual, as you can tell by the colour. Oh, that actually is a different colour that's automatic, but whatever. So if you need to be resuscitated, you come into the resuscitation, or you're brought into the resuscitation room, where of course you can respawn. There is a resuscitation procedures thing there. There is a side effects of being cloned poster there. I will let you read that. There's a staff toilets through there. Again, medical devices. And then we get to the bits you didn't see earlier. So the idea is that this is where people with broken legs and stuff get... So the triage room is where the medical staff decide where you need to go, and this is where you then are taken, is the idea. So trauma is for, as far as I understand it, stabilizing. That's the word I was looking for. You are stabilized here, is the idea. If that stabilization needs more work, you come into an operations room. Very small in here, but I managed to squeeze in 2 operations tables, air quotes of course. Now when either of those 2 things doesn't go well, we have the autopsy room, so that we can determine how you died, with a poster on the wall, just outlining, making sure people doing the autopsy remember what they're supposed to do. And then into the morgue they go, where they're put into the mortuary drawers, where the mortician, well, I suppose just one of the medical staff, what am I doing? I need to walk through that door, can put who they are, cause of death. I can't remember what PMR stands for. No, I can't remember what PMR stands for. Oh well. I did it again. I closed the fucking door again. I'm going back out there. Why? Alright. So that's that. This is manual. That goes back into triage. Now, yeah, let's do these rooms first. So we have a pharmacy where the crew can get the tablets that they are prescribed by the doctor. Here some of the meds are stored. The pharmacist who's out here, they have a switch for the lights there. And then obviously crew members would come in through that door from the corridor outside and wait for the tablets. All RP fluff, but you know, it's fun. Then we have a clinic consultation room. This is where the doctor would see you now. So you could sit there, they would sit there. If they need to examine you on a bed, there's a bed there. And there's the example of the other bed I was talking about that I use as a medical bed. Of course, we have a waiting room out here, because they are always running late by at least 15 minutes. So that's that. We have some storage here, again for more medicines, supplies, bandages. We have more toilets for the staff. Then we have the Chief Medical Officer's office. Oh. The glare on that door made me think my headlight was on. So we have another office, which also has its own head. This is the staff base, and if we go here, we can see there, staff base. And this is where, you know, the members of staff working the sick bay can rest and relax and eat. They have a fridge and a food processor. There's also the Hippocratic Oath. Well, it's my version of. It has been reworded slightly. Again, 350 years in the future, I've taken a few liberties. Now, as I always do, I do want to point out that I've got a rod of Asclepius. Obviously, it's made up of squiggly lines on an LCD screen, so it's not as good as I would have liked. It's possible someone could do better. I couldn't find one. I tried to do it myself, and that's what I made. It's okay. You can see what it's supposed to be. Right. So, round this way, we have a nurse's station here. So, through there, the recovery ward, which we're going to go and have a look at in a minute. You'll have patients there sleeping, recovering, obviously, hence the name recovery ward. And you'd have nurses stationed here to go and respond to them when they need things, you know, their bandage needs changing or they need help going to the toilet, all of that kind of stuff. We have 2 private/quarantine rooms. So either this is where officers would be put, especially high-ranking officers. They have their own shower in here. Or, of course, it would be where you'd bring Kane, where oh, hang on. Is he spelt the other way than Undertaker's brother? Yes, I think it is spelt differently. So, when you've got Kane with a face hugger on his face, because he's just been inside the alien ship, that's where you'd put him in quarantine. You'd lock the door. There's a matching one there. This one's slightly better, only because it has a second window. Light switch. So, at the moment, this is what you would consider to be its night lighting. And there's a day lighting as well for when they don't need to sleep. And that turns on lots of warm coloured lighting around the place. Oh, hang on. Shower block. Patient showers. There are 4 showers in here. Again, the doors are manual. Now, I figured that sometimes there would be a patient needing to be showered who might not necessarily be able to do it themselves. So that's why there's a bench there. Or if they can, they might need to sit down to get dressed and undressed, in case you're wondering. Towels would be stored in there, and there's a sink for, you know, the staff to clean their hands, hygiene and stuff. So, recovery beds, lots of beds, with what I consider to be the medical the medical readouts console thing. Another nurse's station. Patient heads there. Out through the doors, out into the corridor, there is in fact some more patient heads here, just in case both of those are filled, or if you're just walking past, for example, or if you're waiting for the doctor and you need a wee. There you go. Oh, and orange door, manual, gravity generator, light for the switch, or a switch for the light. Okay, moving backward then is where we have the gym. Now that's supposed to be a boxing ring or other kind of, you know, fisticuff sport. These are supposed to be punching bags. My friend didn't figure that out. I'm quite sad about that, but maybe some of you will. Obviously we have a kind of shitty assault course, but it was what I could fit in here. Now this assault course is doable. Now you can see on the left hand side there are some ladders that are horizontal. It is possible to jump across this in such a way. There you go. Oh, I didn't make that jump. So that's a pretend rope projected by those two projectors. And that's the end of the assault course, is the idea. And then here's the multi-use halls. Now, as I said earlier, this is probably where the Marines and stuff would have their physical training, you know, hand-to-hand combat and fitness, and they would obviously have sports in here as well. I've put markings of multiple sports. So this one I think has it's something like football, as in American football, European football, and I think basketball is in here. And then the other one on the other side is things like squash and tennis and something else. The other things that these would be used for is more parties, I suppose. So, you know, when it's the sergeant's birthday, maybe you'd have a party in here. Kind of thing. Yeah. Right, moving back, we have some offices. And we have heads for the offices who are in the offices to do their business. So this one is for the Marines company. As you can see, this would be the company connected to the ship. So mine would be, well, let's say someone named their ship the Intrepid. So this would be the Intrepid company, blah, blah, blah. You turn on the switch. There are no screens in here other than these ones, but you get the lights. And these tell you the ranks and positions within the company. Yeah. Now this office is slightly different, as so is the other one, because it has more doors. So this is the second office of the company, but this is the slightly lower ranking bit of it, is the idea. But that's why there are doors connecting the two, so that you can go between them, because they are part of the same company. Now this is the structure of the company. Yeah, so we have a platoon connected to the Quetzalcoatlises. Earlier on, did I say there was a platoon on board or a company? Because I think I said platoon, but I meant company. So each section is 8 men. There are 6 sections per platoon, plus an OC and a senior NCO. And there are 3 platoons in this company. Switch. So this last office at the front here is the naval crew. So this is the, well, you know, the crew of the Navy that run the ship. This is their complement here. You can come and have a look and see what all that says and stuff. So this is where all their admin would be done. Now obviously there are some officers up on the admin deck, but the higher ranking would probably go between them. So this is the attached craft, so this is the Space and Air Forces office. Again, so they're basically all the same, but you can come and have a look yourself and see what these say. But that's the structure of the squadron on board. Then we have the platoon offices. So the company has an office, and then each platoon has one, and there are 3. So you can see how each platoon is laid out as well. Yeah. Okay. Again, heads there, elevator over there. I'll come back to that in a second. Now, I'm not going to do the same in these two. I'm just going to show you that they are in fact the same sort of layout. Office, and that's for the oh, that's the multifunction platoon. So this will be for the reserves and the mechanics, basically, and the drivers. Yeah. Right. And then that one's for the giant marabou people. Okay. The brig. For where the naughty people are kept. Sentry post here, as in a soldier sentry post. 2 sentry guns. So you would sort of put 2 here as well. 1 for admin and 1 standing guard. There you go, guard post over there. Now they have an intercom panel just in case things go balls up. Toilet for them to use. And these switches, so the first one is the lights here at the front. And then the second one is the lights down the corridor there. For when it's night time, you can turn it off if you care about the comfort of the prisoners. And then that switch does all of the sentry turrets that are on this deck. There are others elsewhere that they don't do. Oh, and the intruder defense signal will do all of the sentry turrets, including these and the ones that are elsewhere. So this is what the detention cells look like. Place to potty and a place to sleep, and that's all you get. I mean, this isn't, you know, this isn't a prison. This isn't a jail. So I would imagine that people would only be in these cells for as long as it took to take them somewhere to probably be court-martialed or tried or transferred to some kind of prison place. Okay, moving forward, another guard post there, there's another guard post there, there are same on the other side. Now the reason, oh, I should say, the armory is in there. Now the door is at the other end, and you'll see there are some turrets around there. But I didn't mind too much having a brig this close to the armory, because there are so many Marines and officers here who would probably be armed with sidearms that even if some prisoners managed to break out of those cells, even if all of them did, they probably wouldn't get too far. And here's another reason why there would be Marines around here. So again, the armory is through this door. Yeah. So the armourer would be here, handing out armour and weapons and ammunition. There's a place for them to potty, and there's a place for them to repair and create ammo and all of that jazz, and some storage. Is that open? Yeah. I'm learning. There's one of the turrets. Oh, there's a turret there and another one the other side that come out the floor. We have a gravity generator there. We have the quartermaster stores here, so this would be where you come for your uniforms and your bedding and your towels and all of that bollocks. Again, they have a toilet to pee. They have a place to make stuff, to store it when it's made and repair things. Through there is the cargo hold that we'll have a look at in a bit. And then through this door here and the matching one on the other side is basically a video range. So you would shoot laser weapons that do no damage at screens at the back. Now there are actually screens back here. I'm not entirely sure why I bothered, but there you go. There are some screens there that I haven't bothered putting anything on them because I thought anything that I put on them would look shit and would kind of ruin the immersion of this being a range. So, and there's a warning there, only use infrared weapons. Some of them would be, well, the infrared weapons would be stored in here. There's a place for you to sort out, you know, if a sling has come off the hook or whatever. Sit down while you're waiting your turn, all of that bollocks. The range officer would be there. So, I would imagine that the Marines there would be quite a few people. This is like an unofficial hub of the ship. There would be quite a few people milling around here. The armory is there, the quartermaster stores is there, and you've got 2 ranges. And as we saw further forwards is the halls, the sports halls. So there would be Marines and other crew here constantly. So that's why I wasn't too worried about having the brig here next to the armory. You might think, well, it's so close to the armory, they might be able to get weapons, but would they? Yeah, that's the other range. Okay, so we're getting near the end now. So we have the water tanks that I showed you earlier. In fact, all of this I showed you earlier. The resupplying space station. The cargo hold is here with some storage. They're nice. And there's the fuel in there, or the main fuel store, I should say. The O2, one of them. The other one on the other side. Okay. And here we are at the back at the engineering. So I showed you most of this earlier, but we'll have a look at all the RP the more RP-ish stuff now. So a communications panel for internal, access to the AI, external comms is there. A thing to, well, I think that's actually supposed to be to control that, really. Some extra fluff there. Some tinker tables in the workshop there and there, along with some other stuff that might be needed in the workshop. Yeah, we had a good look here. Oh, and there is over here a window to look at the cooling pipes, just to check on them. Yeah. And of course there's a way out onto this deck up here as well. Now I did show you quickly the stern thruster maintenance. Yes. Oh, and that lever will turn on the lights that are down from here down, otherwise it's dark. I only put the lights from here up on that sensor. Right. Across the way. So over here we have some heads for the engineers. You don't have to walk far to go pee on this ship, I can tell you. So we have a pretend make-believe water plant for treating the water. So the idea is that it gets recycled, or some of it gets recycled, and then some of it doesn't and gets blown out through that vent there, is the idea. The solids, as it were. Oh, and the light switch for in there is out here, but I forgot to turn it on the way in. Upstairs is the only thing left here to show you. That's the office suite. Now, it's very similar to the office suites that we were looking at just now. Switch. Yeah. So we have the chief engineer's office in there. As you can tell by the writing there, unfortunately it's a little bit lost by the light, but never mind. I didn't think about it at the time. Oh, it's black, isn't it? Okay, I'll change that and re-upload, I think. There was another thing, wasn't there? I'll do that afterwards. And then the engineers can sit and, you know, conference about what they need to do to fix the ship and all of that kind of stuff. There's the other side of the coolant pipes. Okay, let's find the nearest elevator and go down to the next deck. So here we are on the drop cruise deck. Now, much like the other hangar bay, this bay also has a deck crew ready area where the technicians and stuff could sit and wait for stuff to come in that needs repairing, or to sit when there isn't, I should say. They have toilets, There's an observation thing here just because there was space and I wanted to use it for something. Again, there's a light switch so that when you get in the seats, the lights stay on. Although only in that area. Yeah. Right, now, ordinarily the Marines would be coming into this room from the other side, but whatever. So this is the ready room for the drop crews. So we've got a place for the Marines to put on their boots and get their weapons and equipment and grenades and all of that kind of stuff. So while they're waiting for the call to go into the drop bay ready to mount up onto the vehicles, they could be here. Now, I sort of imagine out of all of those sections and all of those platoons of Marines, there would always be a section of 8 Marines here ready to go, I would have thought. Probably one in each side. Now, the drop ships in the upper bay, the main bay, would be serviced by this ready room as well. So Marines would either go out through those doors we just came in into the Quetzal Bay, or they'd go out the front door and up the elevator into the main bay to get on their drop ships, but they would all be here. And I'd imagine there'd be a section of 8 ready to go at all times. And that's why they've got quite a luxurious place, because they might be here for 8, 10, 12 hours a day, waiting just in case they need to be deployed, is the idea. They've also got a place to work, you know, if they have any papers or whatnot that they need to write, or forms they need to fill in and all of that bollocks. Of course, they have toilets. There's also briefing rooms. Again, there's matching one on each side. The other side is mirror image of this, and we're either side of the drop bay where I was earlier, where I fell out the bottom of the ship. So this is where you would be briefed on what your mission is and that kind of stuff. Obviously there are screens at the front for showing information. It's all bollocks, of course, but there you go. We had a look in the shuttle bay earlier on. There isn't much else to see other than over there there's a little bit of an observation deck, windows to look out to see stuff coming in. That's about it. Next deck down, bottom deck, deck 8, the Quetzal Bay deck. So through this door we have access to the bow thrusters. Yup. Now, just in case something goes wrong in the drop bay, and as the sign says you need a helmet in here because there is no ventilator. So, we have a ribbon. If you go in that ribbon, that will open the doors. If you flick that switch, that'll turn off the sensor that opens that door. So if, for example, I mean this is lore again, it's all RP fluff. If a dropship comes in here and then breaks down in here, you would need to be able to get in here. So that's why I've given doors and stuff to get in. So through here, mechanics workshops for working on damaged APCs and stuff. You even have a mechanics pit to get underneath them. I showed you the constructors earlier, but we have plenty of work surfaces for putting bits of the vehicle on to work on them. We even have a place to sit and wait while the new bits are being constructed. And then you could have another one here waiting. Or, I mean, so in the screenshots, I forgot to write on the screenshots that the vehicles, the orange vehicles are set dressing and not functional. But you would imagine you could park one there, one of the tugs. So, yeah, we had a look in here earlier. I don't think there's much else to show you. Other than it's just a big open bay. Oh, this is, so, in Aliens, get on the ready line. I did a Google search, and from what I could find, the ready line is an actual, well, it is used, but I don't know if it's an actual line painted on the floor, is my point. I think if you can be just up against the wall, and that would be your designated ready line. But I've painted a line on the floor for you, or for the Marines. I mean, you can ignore it, obviously. Right, I think that's everything. I don't think there's anything else I need to show you. I mean, bits of fluff, but you can find that kind of stuff when you explore yourself, I suppose. Yeah, that's it. Right, I'm going to call that the end of the tour there. I apologise for it being a long one, but again, like I said, I put the full tour at the end, so you can skip it if you wanted to. If you haven't and you're still here, thank you very much. And yeah, I'm going to call it the end of the tour. So, thank you very much for taking an interest in the Commando class Orbital Assault Ship. I hope you get some use out of it, and hopefully I will see you in another video for a different build. So, thank you again, and goodbye.